So essentially, you leave yourself no other choice, no other way out. You spent your money, and it's so limited these days, right? That you budget it out, and all you have left is carbohydrates that have high fiber carbohydrates. You choose. I'm not a dietitian. I've worked as a certified sports nutritionist. I've worked as a nutrition and wellness counselor. I've had other minor certifications in nutrition. I study on my own, but I really believe, like politics and religion, it is entirely up to your own expression. However, this being said, money being highly limited these days, you need to focus and target on your goal. So the number one thing is adequate water, fresh water, have plenty of water supply. If you can't get that water down, such as myself, no way could I drink 1 or 2 gallons of just water. It doesn't matter if I go walk 30 miles. My body just doesn't crave it. And I end up getting dehydrated, and that's a big part of like overtraining or a lack in training recovery. So I take in Crystal Light. I budget out some of that, those resources for that. And then every single day, I make sure that I've got at least 1 gallon of fresh water, if not more. When I'm doing this continuous training, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, up to 4,000 times per day. Maybe I'll even hit a record where I exceed that. Yeah, 4,000 times from there to there, times 4,000. And you don't really want to think of things like that because you're always in the moment. And so try not to look down at your progress constantly. And if you are keeping like a video log like I do, wait a while before you even look at it, If you have to edit it a little bit, go ahead and do that, but don't leave out all the ugly parts. You've got to have some of the ugly parts in there to know what kind of progress you're making. And it's that trifecta, right? The 3. It's always about that pyramid, whether we want to admit it or not. It's found everywhere that we go in society, and even on a spiritual level within us, on some level, in some regard. But we have to add in that depth, right? So we have aerobics, anaerobics, and then we have the conditioning aspect that comes from an internal, intrinsic toughness that we get from dieting and focusing in on our nutrition, undulating between a fasted state and a super compensated state, where you take up all these nutrients very rapidly and you choose the best that you can afford at the time. And most people, if you really look at it during a month, even if you're on state benefits, EBT or whatnot, there's a time there where theoretically you could get those really high quality nutrients and have at least a day or maybe 3 days of just really, I call it more of an Epicurean diet, where you're fasting so that you can enjoy. And really the enjoyment, the super compensation, is what it's all about. So for right now, I'm just sticking with brown rice and things like that when I do. I'm down to just oatmeal now, and it'll be another 2 weeks before I can see, longer than 2 weeks before I see anything but that. And that's fine for me because I'm getting all those nutrients. I pre-planned. I'm getting all the nutrients that I need from the IsoPure. I'm getting all the hydration that I need from the water, but also the palatability with, Total Poison Crystal Light. No boast or brag on that. It's just what I have to do to get it down. And then, other than the fasting from a really high quality source like IsoPure with all the nutrients, drinking all that water, then we get into little mini stages where if you just can't go anymore, you don't want to limit your carbohydrate intake. You gotta trigger it off, So what I tend to do is I think about, okay, if I took in 2,000 calories worth of the highest quality high fiber carbohydrate source, maybe even more like 2,200 to 2,400 after the thermic effect of food, it would take that to replace all of the glycogen, theoretically. But the truth is, even if you go to that exact number, your body is so inefficient at storing that glycogen, and so much goes to waste that it often takes you 1 to 3 days just to replace the glycogen. However, let's say I took in half that, 700 to 900 calories, and just did it once. This is enough to break the monotony so that I can at least go back into my training for another 3 to 4 day depletion. It's all about the fat loss, folks. So let's not leave out the first preface here, and that is you need an intermediary carbohydrate load that leaves you 50% or inadequately carbohydrate loaded. This is enough to add some brain fuel to get you up and going again, but it's not so much where it's just going to halt all your progress and stop you in your tracks. Yes, you'll notice water retention. Yes, you'll notice all sorts of changes, and it'll make you feel like you're, gaining a lot of weight, but in reality, you're not, and you need to fall back on the hard science of it. So the scale's not going to reflect this, but you have to use your intellect, just the knowledge of knowing, applying, and then the intuitive information that comes back to you, circles back around in the application of the process. You have to learn to trust the process. And so you're going to have days where you hit the wall, like yesterday. I didn't hit the wall, but I knew that I was going to be, waking up really flattened out. That is, I'm way too low on glycogen from walking 48 miles within just a 3-4 day span. About 4 days, 5 days, but the bulk of that was done within like a 3 or 4 day span, where I was walking 12, 13, and 16 miles. And it felt great. And on that first day that I just mentioned, I was lifting while I was doing resistance training, body weight exercises, which I'll be showing on this channel more and more. That's what this channel will be mainly focused around. But I'll be doing this, I'll be doing other things, but there's going to be a lot of exercise prescriptive exercises, such as, the integrity of your joint systems, working on the spinous system, things that support your spine. I'm not even able to tap into all my educations until I'm able to do it myself. I made a video on that some time ago where it's like, if your trainer isn't doing what they're recommending that you do, it's time to look for another trainer, because it's proof in process, proof of stake, proof of application, however you want to look at it. So intrinsic value brings out value, and that's what you're looking for when you are expressly looking or searching for somebody that's going to help you on your way. But these days, all that information is available to you online, and you can always get a hold of people, you know, like the app that I use. You know, it's there's plenty of trainers around. It's not rocket science, and you need to apply this to yourself and show yourself that level of self-efficacy. So with that said, I'll probably be getting back into training anytime now. I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to be a trainer. I look like a trainer. I feel like a trainer. And I'm starting to gain an interest back in the restudy of the information that I've learned in the past. Learning new things, but it's always based on the practicum of what you've already learned, you know, from physiology, biomechanics, anatomy, the kinesiology, nutrition. It's the age-old traditions of things that, you know, I should understand and do understand, and just need to be constantly reminding myself of that and enjoying the process of it and seeing how it all meshes together. And as an older gentleman, seeing where that takes me now, you know, that's the process, right? So last but not least, super compensation. I believe firmly and heavily in the clay pot cooking. I do not have a clay pot at the moment, but you put it in the oven. Typically, you would wet this clay pot, though I found some clay pots that I owned actually broke after I would wet them. So it really depends on whether or not you're putting it right into this ultra-hot oven. I remember finding that around 400 degrees was perfect, that with many of these clay pots that weren't treated, I didn't even need to add water to the outside of them, and that it would just trap in this flavor and this moisture that I haven't been able to get from an Instant Pot, though I think the Instant Pot is a really tertiary choice, not even a second choice. Maybe a big crock pot might be a secondary choice, just because you're able to cook a bulk, you know. So if you have a family or whatnot, you're going to cook your rice, right? And then if you cook your rice in with all those vegetables in order to super compensate, I used to put in mineral drops for Mineral Research Group, liquid minerals. I wouldn't overdo it. I would probably put in just like 10 to 15 drops if I knew that a lot of the vegetables that I was incorporating into my meal were going to be low on nutrients, nutrient density. Then you want to look at different spices that go really well. Like, you know, you'd be surprised at how, you know, as far as like cinnamon and its curative properties with respect to blood sugar, or cleaning out your blood system with garlic, mustard powder, curry, I mean, cumin. These things they have medicinal effects. And when you have issues, particularly with your stomach, your gastric intestinal system, you'd be surprised at how the fasting, the orthomolecular science and nutrition, which I haven't mentioned, which I always try to mention in these videos, is highly efficacious and important to add in. Billy J. Saley, Heal with Amino Acids and Nutrients, very efficacious. So due diligence at working on that, and you know, you can cure your post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's going to take a lot of work, and eventually you have to induce stress like I do. I wasn't mentally capable of, or from a neuromuscular standpoint, or from a nervous system response standpoint, to do 16 miles like I did yesterday and go, wow, if my son wasn't walking through that door and I had the place to myself into the wee hours of the night, I'd walk 24 to 26 hours. When you break it up into segments and you segment through practicality your workouts, the bouts of exercise that you go into, you'd be surprised at what you can handle. And that's what GIT training is all about, gradual intensity training. It's not to say you shouldn't load on maximal intensity, but it is to say that you can break the intensity up and do these micro workouts, and then you'd be surprised when you have that don't quit overall energy that you put into things, where it's like, okay, who wrote down that an hour and a half later, I can't just go back in and do another 2 or 3 sets? And some of us will start out with 1 set, and that first set is only 3 or 4 reps. You don't want to load on too much. That's the whole gradual. You get your body, start working with your body. If you can just lift your arm up, and then you can do that 10 times. That's an exercise. It's more than you did yesterday, right? So gradual intensity training, it doesn't have a cap. There's no limit on what you can do. And so now with that application, with that focus in mind, see, what got us away from this was egocentric training. It was based on the premise of a false ego, where everything's based on the pump. You're not basing everything on the pump or the way you look. You're basing it on your health and fitness. And when you get older, you start to see the practical application to that. Road Beast Warrior out. Be healthy. Stay strong.